Giu. Can you hear me at the back of the room? Yes? Okay. And I'm on the creative writing faculty here, and I'll be your MC for the afternoon. And I'd like to begin by warmly welcoming you all to this very special, intimate occasion, seeing as there will be 6 graduates this graduating class, a Goddard graduation. And for those of you who haven't been to one of our graduations before, the Master of Fine Arts students who are graduating today chose this program for a number of reasons. But for this moment, I'd like to focus on just one: the demand that they open themselves to uncertainty. The study of creative writing demands that you face what you do not know and might never know, and it also requires you to face that not knowing on a daily basis at your desk alone. For the students who are graduating today, this ceremony is the public celebration that they now know something about themselves as writers in the world, as well as a public recognition of all the hours they toiled in isolation at their desks. To the members of the audience who are new to this particular ceremony, at Goddard, each graduate becomes his or her own valedictorian. This means that after their advisors introduce them, or if their advisors are not present, after their second leaders introduce them, they will each give a 3-minute speech. Finally, this is amusing to me, right? Because usually this is the bit where I say, listen everybody, remember we only have a limited amount of time and everybody has to share equally, so don't go over your 3 minutes. But you could probably do 3.5. Seeing as there's only 6 of you. But we're timing you, right? 3.5 minutes each. I'd like to end my welcome with the program tradition of acknowledging that most of our graduates have been aided on their MFA journeys by the love and support of extended family members or friends. So if you are a family member or friend, you can either stand up or wave your hands, and we'd just like to publicly acknowledge you. And now I'm thrilled to introduce your commencement speaker, Rogelio Martinez.
Colleagues, staff, family and friends, and of course, graduates. Thank you for this great honor you've given me. In a room full of writers, the pressure to say something meaningful, intelligent, and above all, original is really great. What to do? The first thing I did was turn my back on words. I figured everything I could say to you had already been said, so words were not going to help me. However, one of the definitions of meaningful is expressing an emotion without words. The solution to my problem. All I needed to do was look at some silent films, string together a set of looks, and I'd be doing something meaningful, intelligent, above all, original. Over the last few days, I spent a great deal of time in front of the mirror, working out some meaningful looks for me to share with you today. On more than one occasion, I did think of Carly Simon's "You're So Vain." There I was, looking at myself, smiling, furrowing my eyebrows, even my hand under my chin, and looking straight ahead. I did do a bunch of additional things, but I'll spare you those. It was scary. Needless to say, I eventually realized Greta Garbo, Lillian Gish, and Rudolph Valentino had done it all before without looking like a misshapen monster. It was at this point I realized I couldn't turn my back on words. Words have been my ally for far too long not to use them. Everyone in this room has a special relationship with words. Mine takes me back to when I was about 12, 13, and recently arrived from Cuba. At the time, words were always there for me, as an only child. And when first learning English, I thought people around me said lonely child. But It made more sense to me. But as an only child living in a small apartment in a small neighborhood of a small city, I quickly turned to the imagination. At the time, writing served as a kind of refuge. As someone who'd lost so much when my parents decided to emigrate, and the loss included one parent, I turned to writing. Let me now remind you that at this time I was also beginning to learn English. I was learning how to make a new language work for me, how to write one sentence and trust that a second would follow. In fact, I wasn't just learning basic English, I was discovering idioms and expressions that at first made little sense to me. I would try translating these from English to Spanish only to discover their real meaning hiding somewhere beyond the reach of the literal. Before long, I was using an arm and a leg, loose cannon, easy as pie in my writing. There were other expressions, though, that remained a great mystery to me. Heebie-jeebies and fuddy-duddy were two of those. But a great split was about to occur. It was a split I'd only become conscious of years later. The split occurred when English became for me the language of the imagination, the one I would use every time I wanted to run away, to soar, to escape, the language I would use to laugh. On the other hand, Spanish became the language of reality. It was the language my mother and I used every time we called my dad in Cuba and had to beg the operator on the other end to give us one more minute with him. The Cuban Revolution was very stingy with the time it allowed its citizens to talk to the traders living in a snowy paradise of Coca-Cola and Sears. Spanish then became the language my mother and I used to confront reality. English was mine and mine alone. It was a blank slate that presented me with none of the problems Spanish would present me with. English was the one I used when I wanted to run away from reality. It was at this time I started to put words into the mouth of my characters. I made up new worlds and filled them with people who only spoke English. Years later, I would discover the teleplay screenwriter Dennis Potter. The Singing Detective is one of Potter's greatest achievements. In it, Potter presents the viewer with another great split. A writer is in the hospital suffering from a terrible case of psoriasis, but his imagination pulls him away into a fantasy world of gumshoes and singing. It's a world straight out of the work of Raymond Chandler. Potter continued to be obsessed with the possibility of running away from one harsh world to a more beautiful one, a more magical one where people would just burst out into songs. He would do this time and again in his work. Pennies from Heaven and Lipstick on Your Collar immediately come to mind. This great split between the real and the imagined is one that all writers experience at some point or other. But the split is not simply about the imagination and the real, it's about something else. All of us are in this room today because words have brought us together. What we do with words, how we take words and use them to change something about our life, our past, or even our future. Words give us some control over our lives. Words offer us shelter. Words are our friends. They offer us the promise that things can end the way we want them to. And if they don't, there's always the opportunity to rewrite. But as you already know, the imagination and the real often clash. The split between those two is never a clean one. It's never as clean as I've led you to believe, or as Dennis Potter's characters would make you think. The split is messier. The split occurs in a room at the end of a dark hallway that few dare to enter. In these last 2 years at Goddard, you've been given some candles, maybe even a flashlight or two, and told, go, enter it. The faculty has stood behind you, quite a few steps behind you, and watched you go. You've approached the room cautiously and with a healthy sense of fear. But all of you have opened that door. All of you have entered that room. And what have you found inside? A mess of the real and the imagined. A mess that's allowed you to do some incredible writing. A mess that has only given you more strength. In that mess, you found your work. It's powerful because you have used the real in your life. It works because you have used your imagination. My own split between English and Spanish came to an end when I began writing plays. At first I wrote plays that had nothing to do with my life. They had nothing in them. It was pure imagination, pure English, pure falseness. Then I wrote a short play for myself, and more for myself than anyone else. It was titled, Union City, New Jersey, Where Are You? It was about a single mom and her young boy's desire to visit Rockefeller Center to see the Christmas tree. I used some Spanish in the writing, but more importantly, I used the imagination to tell the very real story of two people afraid of the world they found themselves living in. Two people too scared to cross the bridge into New York City. This was the story of me and my mother. After this one play, my writing changed. I had no trouble entering that messy room I've already talked to you about and grabbing whatever I could grab. Am I running out of things to take out of the room? Surprisingly, no. In fact, that room gets messier. Yes, the longer you live, the messier the room gets. For some of us, it's so messy, we've had to take over a second and a third room. In Carol Churchill's gender-bending gem of a play, Cloud 9, the first act takes place in colonial Africa. The wife in the play, Betty, is played by a man. Churchill's explanation for this is that at this time the wife, quote, wants to be what men want her to be. The second act takes place 100 years later, but the characters have only aged 25 years. In this second act, Betty is played by a woman. As she, and this is Carol Churchill again, as she gradually becomes real to herself. Excuse me. In the last few moments of the play, the Betty from the first act reappears, and the two characters, the past and the present, embrace. As the curtain comes down, one is left with that image, with the idea that the past is always there. It doesn't go away. You can attempt to change it, to run away from it, but it's best to embrace it and come to terms with it. In the 2 years you've been here, you've done some embracing. Your new self has shown great courage in applying your imagination to the real. You have called on past challenges to create new and exciting work. You're now able to put those candles and flashlights aside and walk down that dark hallway and into that messy room without any fear. In connecting the real and the imagined, you go out into the world kinder, more forgiving, more understanding person. You leave us a better writer. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Rogelio. Have you noticed that there's something missing that's usually up here? You probably don't know, do you? There's usually a box of tissues. So I'm assuming that means that they all think that you're really stoic. So no crying. Because we don't have any tissues, do we? We do list everybody that graduated on the program, even though there are two people on this list that are not showing up. I'm not sure if it's work commitments. I actually don't know why they couldn't come to their graduation. But we do like to acknowledge that they've graduated and say their name out loud publicly so they can be told back home that it really happened. So the first person is Noah Alexander Dorsey. So let's just give him a round of applause. That was the virtual graduation, so now the real one. I'd like to welcome Annie Breyer and Patrice Kelly to be introduced by their advisor, Beatrix Gaines.
They just did, yeah. It's a pleasure to introduce Annie and Patrice. Annie Breyer has produced a compelling poetry thesis entitled Detritus. Annie takes on the subject of toxic waste burial at Colorado's Arsenal, alongside exploring physical spaces of buried violence in her own childhood nearby. This is contrasted with a freeing space of her own early discoveries of specific art pieces that helped her imagine more. Breyer has created a fine collage, narrative and lyrical explorations of the ground under her feet as she looks at the effects of childhood secrets, descriptions of her own photographs of the Colorado Arsenal, and the art that gave her a tactile and visual opening to the world. This weave creates a story taken from the secrets of the past and exposes them in the present light so we can see the role of art in maintaining an intimate human space and the possibility of reclaiming beauty through witnessing. It is this form of detritus that Annie Brer explores in her adventurous MFA thesis. She worked really hard for clarity, cutting the unnecessary, and discovered a leaner prose poetry and unfolding imagery that has become her trademark. The poems depict absence and silence, sometimes around miscommunication and distrust, and at other times as an opening of the ability to see and occupy space differently. There are different kinds of silence here, yet the experience reverberates loud in color or starkness. The family stories circle but do not necessarily connect. There's the call to the sensual world outside and the arsenal snapshots as the ultimate frame to the meanings we are left with. Annie is the one who decided to go to the arsenal site to take photographs. In the vein of the unexpected, there is healing where you perhaps least expect to find it, in ground as poisonous as the arsenal. As she presents the facts of toxins held in the ground, the lack of life above ground, and what creatures lived there, she casts a light. There are many forms of seeing in detritus, and she has sharpened what we see and how we see it. As her first advisor, Juliana Spars, said, Annie came to Goddard saying she had never written anything before, that she was a beginner. This was both true and untrue. She has long been an artist, unquote. Annie has completed the program as a poet who makes visual art. This is an achievement, and I think her manuscript detritus is a provocative collection of poetry.
First, I just want to say it's just okay. First, I just want to say it's just been such a wonderful experience to be part of Goddard. I don't know what it was exactly that drew me to Goddard. Certainly, I wanted to learn the craft of writing in a community of writers. I wanted the time to explore this new creative practice that I'd recently fallen in love with. Port Townsend? Yep, I could imagine hanging out here 2 weeks out of the year. But beyond that, it's a mystery. We make decisions, follow paths we believe we choose, but it seems there is often a deeper coursing of energies that propels us in a particular direction. Often the reason for our journey remains unclear, but sometimes we get a glimpse, a momentary embodied vision that positively suggests other realms of meaning. From the beginning here at Goddard, I felt this to be true. Sure, I came here to learn to write, but beyond that, I sensed something else at play. I can only guess what that might be, but it seems at this place in my life, I'm here to connect with others, move deeper into relationship, to learn more about love. The last 2 years have been difficult ones for me, especially this final semester. My coursework in writing helped to sustain me through the various challenges and transitions. And through it all, I was blessed with the continuous gift of support, compassion, and love. From complete strangers to family and friends and the students, faculty and staff here at Goddard. There were those who called offering support, encouragement, and inspiration, those who offered their homes to me, others who walked with me, and one friend who took me kayaking. I feel really grateful. I especially want to thank my dearest daughter, Stella, my advisor, B. Gates, and my good friend, Patrice. I offer this reading to everyone here, those and those who helped me along the way, written by John O'Donohue, titled Blessing. On the day when the weight deadens on your shoulders and you stumble, may the clay dance to balance you. And when your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, red, green, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight. When the canvas rays and the currach of thought and the stain of ocean blackens beneath you, may there come across the waters a path of yellow moonlight to bring you safely home. May the nourishment of the earth be yours. May the clarity of light be yours. May the fluency of the ocean be yours. May the protection of the ancestors be yours. And so, may a slow wind work these words of love around you, an invisible cloak to mind your life. Thank you.
Patrice Kelly's intense and moving memoir, Some Gaul, in its fullest sense is a significant spiritual encounter with herself, with the broken histories of family and of Ireland. In writing Some Gaul, she has found a way to ground herself as a survivor of a legacy of violence in a working-class Irish family in New York City, without dismissing or forgetting all that brought her to the need to witness the story. By necessity, she explores her place in it and her partial escape from it. Patrice located a place in the body from which to speak, some Gaul. The Gaul, metaphors surrounding the gallbladder, and traditional aspects of Gaul in fable and traditional healing. She added crucial material in the last few semesters about the Irish potato famine, which she read about this morning, the silence about the suffering and numbers of dead from starvation, and laid the groundwork for the intergenerational terms common to unspoken tragedy and protecting your own. A particularly moving moment comes on a trip to Ireland when Patrice, while looking for her mother's family's hometown, discovers a passerby with the same last name. He tells her she is standing in her mother's family territory where she learns the worst of it happened. It is the place of mass graves. The town is not marked because it disappeared, even though everyone of that place knows the truth. Patrice locates how this legacy of hurt is rooted deep in her own family. Patrice sets up each of her siblings with an allegorical name associated with the personal iconic events within the family drama. She depicts the sibling relationships through troubled contact in the present, informed by flashback, and shows the father's relationship to all close to him in detailed scenes of brutality. By the end of the memoir, Patrice can offer him a space differently from the powerfully depicted territory of abuse and cruelty that defines him for much of his life. No less remarkable is showing how her mother maintained a sense of humor and true generosity within devastating, ongoing violence. Patrice shares the same generosity of spirit toward her own circle of beloved friends and her children in the book. When Patrice gets to some form of forgiveness, and this is not a given, nor is it for us to claim or judge, she has earned them, not extra or sentimental. They are smaller ways of saying something much larger. As her first advisor, Elena Georgiou, said, I encourage the ambition Patrice has for her work. I have every faith that Patrice will write the memoir she hopes to write, filtered through one heart and one mind. Patrice has worked hard to engage with the difficult and moving material of this memoir, and this having never done it before. She can be proud of having some goal and producing this compelling thesis. Congratulations.
but pride just doesn't resonate with me. I don't mean to take away from those of you who are proud of me, or those of you who feel pride for yourselves. It's just not how I feel. I'm deeply moved at a core level, and I'm mind-blown that my life lined up in such a way that I ended up being here now with all of you. I'm grateful to have had this opportunity. I'm grateful to have finally found me. Ooh, that wasn't even right. I'm grateful to God to call to the whole staff, Joyce, for your hearts, for your minds, for the wisdom that you come here to share with the likes of me. This is not a glamorous life, I know. I have nothing but gratitude and respect for you. I'm humbled by the generosity of my two advisors, Elena and Bee, and their willingness and ability to go above and beyond the call of duty and meet me where I was at, and midwife me through this journey in the most compassionate and heartfelt way I could have ever imagined possible. I have been given all that I need to move forward, not only as a writer, but as a human being. And I thank each and every one of you for your willingness to share and be involved with this program as a godsend. I never thought I'd get an MFA. I never even knew what an MFA was until 4 years ago. I also never thought I'd ever go to college. Why would I do such a thing? But at 46, there I was in college, and here I stand at 52 with a Master's of Fine Art in Creative Writing, when I never knew I could write. But it was never about the degree. It was about transformation. It was never about academia. It was about building relationships. Thank you to all my classmates and for the love and support. I wish you all well on this journey. I'm grateful for my friends, for the ones who are here today and for the ones who could not make it. I'm grateful to the spirits, to the angels, to the ancestors, and for the mystery and for the love that keeps it all together. I'm grateful for my dear friend Kathy, who keeps me connected to the heavens, to the stars, to the atomic particulates and reality and all things at play. I am grateful for my dearest, oldest friend, Elizabeth. You are my grounding wire who saves me from falling off the curb every day. You are always there, always reminding me of where I come from, who I really am in the present. To my beautiful, creative, patient, and brave children, you who light my way, I am grateful to you for all of your love and support and help, and I'm sorry for being such a stress case. And I know this has not been easy, and I have not been easy, and I thank you for the truth serum filled with medicine that continually helps me grow into a better human being.
Next, I'd like to ask Laura Yeoman to come to the front of the room. I was Laura's advisor. Laura Yeoman's novel, What Remains of My Father, is an elegantly written story about a woman who is examining her two primary relationships, a negligent but loving father from whom she has distanced herself, and a mature, responsible and loving man to whom she is married. As for her protagonist takes a car journey with her husband at her side to attend her father's funeral, the reader is given a view of the protagonist's inner landscape and how the turns of her past and present are magnified by the lens of this recent death. It is on this journey that she finds the courage and strength to change her passivity into action, to make sure the rest of her days are spent as a woman who takes responsibility for her own life. Laura's second reader, Amy Lou, writes, Laura has infused elegant descriptions of the passing landscape with her characters' inner struggles to make unspoken tensions resonate in even the briefest interactions with such subtlety that they ring true and also deliver essential layers of subtext to the protagonist's journey. Laura, you should be proud. Congratulations.
So this is short. So I'm going to begin with the gratitude to Elena and to Amy. I appreciate how much you never accepted anything less than my best work. For giving me the knowledge to make it even better, and for the challenges as well as the encouragement. Couldn't have done this without you. To JD, my husband, for giving me the space and time and support I needed to get this done. You sacrificed, and it hasn't been unnoticed. Thank you, I love you. To my Goddard people for dragging me through the tough times, I love you all. When I showed up at this fort 2 years ago, a man with wild black hair stepped in front of me and said, "Aren't you one?" It was awkward. All I could say was, "What's that even mean?" But now I realize it meant I was starting a process that would change me completely. Writing was no longer what I did when I had free time, dreaming of a future when I would write that book. Now writing has become a daily necessity, my work. Before the first week ended, I was told, "You are a writer." Looking back, I realized that Goddard, this process, has not transformed me into a different person. Rather, it has helped me to become more truly myself, whoever I have always been. And so to the G1s who may just now begin to realize the power of this program, to you in the middle semesters who are trusting the process, growing in ways you may never have expected, and to us, my fellow graduates, who now know that this isn't simply the end of 2 years of hard work, but a commencement, a completely new beginning. And I'm going to read some lines from T.S. Eliot's Dry Salvages. Fair forward travelers, not escaping from the past into different lives or into any future. You are not the same people who left that station, or who will arrive at any terminus while the narrowing rails slide together behind you. Fair forward, you who think that you are voyaging. You are not those who saw the harbor receding, or those who will disembark, here between the hither and the farther shore, while time is withdrawn. Consider the future and the past with an equal mind. And do not think of the fruit of action. Fair forward, O voyagers, O seamen. You come to this fort, you whose bodies will suffer the trial and judgment of the sea, or whatever event. This is your real destination. Not farewell, but fair forward, voyagers.
Next, I'd like to welcome up Mary Virginia Luck to be introduced by her advisor, Micheline Amarone. Welcome.
Gina Luck's thesis, The Art of Saving Lives and Other Stories, is a collection of stories which are as luminous as they are strange, wonderfully phantasmagorically evocative, written in a rich and detailed metaphoric language that is all her own. The stories touch on loss and grief and death and wild storms and the water and families, which are the nexus of these worlds. As B. Gates, her second reader, wrote, there is always a beauty, whether a comfort or not, and the grace and exploring prose travels far, documenting inner states of damage and some outer struggle, but always portraying the sensuous and sensed world of nature in all its strength, terror, and redemptive cycles. Bravo and congratulations, Gina.
And of course, all my friends who I've met through this program have really inspired me, given me a lot of, just a lot of strength to continue. So thank you. And my husband and my little boy is back there. Thank you.
Jasmine Cronin Giorgiardi is also unable to be with us for graduation, so if we could just give her a round of applause. And I would like to welcome to the front of the room Zach Zorba-Gresham to be introduced by his advisor, Rogelio Martinez.
Zachary Gresham's Lost Son is a complicated thriller. In it, a young man survives a terrorist attack only to be pulled into the dark world of espionage and strange alliances. The young man in Mr. Gresham's script is given a whole new identity. His mission now to stop the same terrorist responsible for the attack that killed his friend. Both gripping and emotionally grounded, Mr. Gresham writes with great specificity. It's his attention to detail and his ability to take his audience with him to places we don't know exist that makes Mr. Gresham a real talent. But it is his boundless curiosity and energy that will help his special talent grow. Congratulations.
I'm going to start with something I wouldn't normally do, which is ask for about 10 seconds of very, very awkward silence. There's a method to this madness. Silence we heard as anxiety stirred because as creative writers we are drawn to words. The stories exist whether we write them or not, and the challenge we face is just us and the block. For all the voices that were silent, we must do our thing, making songs for people who cannot sing. The yoke that we carry, inspiration is our own, and the draft is the same for us to share. Today is the day that I can say that I'm a master screenwriter with an MFAW. To my mom and thanks to my pops, to my family and my friends and Dan below. Cause even as a writer you were not alone. You're rubber hand me up and selling ball. If there was more I would thank you all. For those who moved on and those still here, let me make this point just a bit more clear. Writing is the chance to give verbal form to the creative monster that imperfect storm. Put the pens to the paper and push those keys. Cut your teeth on the story, make your fingers bleed. Not about what you want, it's what your heroes need. Fade in triple threads, craft every scene. And when it's all done, get sent to revise. No same revision, you get wise. After 32 drafts, you'll be surprised. How things appear right before your eyes. All I got in college, my time is up. G1, GW, I'm a graduate.
Will you be doing an excerpt from the Sugar Plum Fairy? Okay, so last but not least, please welcome Ruth Schomler to be introduced by her advisor, Victoria Nelson.
A moving narrative informed by the deep honesty of its main character, Rose, Ruth Schomler's novel Death Watch is a patchwork quilt of now and then, present and past vignettes out of which a pattern soon emerges. The painful progress of a devout young woman who loses her father too soon, marries quickly, and sacrifices her dreams for the needs of others in a fateful circling motion of the karmic wheel. Forever leaving the family farm only to be forced to return again, Rose is locked in a cycle of caregiving that never seems to end. As in a fairy tale, In the blink of an eye, we see her as a child trading secrets with her best friend, a young girl bereft of her father, a bride to the first man she kisses, the mother of 8 children, and in the frame that overshadows, very effectively, I'll say, overshadows the whole life story, caretaker of a mother with Alzheimer's who will seemingly never die. Death Watch is a powerful story told with art and grace. Congratulations, Ruth.
First of all, I would never know how to follow Zach. And second of all, I didn't know we had 3 minutes. So I could have quit the editing that I'd done. But I'm a writer, so I had to edit what I was going to say a couple times. So all I was going to say was what I learned in my MFA program. How to find something beneficial in books that I hate. That even reading the worst books can teach me something. How to do homework anytime, anywhere. Every experience I have is fodder for my writing. And everyone is a potential character. I can do the hardest, most challenging things even when life gets in the way. And in reference to that, every other one of my process letters would have something like, oh, I had this and this and this happen, and I know I didn't spend very much time on my writing, and every time I had something emotional happen in my life, the packets came back and they said, this was your best packet ever. To experience life, so I have something to write about. And if I can get through this program, so can you. I want to thank my advisors, Amy Lou, Derek Cloud, and Victoria Nelson for all their advice and encouragement. Thanks to Paul and the Financial Aid Office and everyone else at Goddard who made my education possible. Thanks to my family for putting up with all the corn dogs and frozen burritos they've eaten in the past 2 years. Thanks to my husband for all the encouragement and for putting up with me and not letting me quit. There were many times that I wanted to quit, even in the 4th semester. And he said, you've only got 2 weeks left. Thanks to everyone who encouraged me not to quit when I wanted to every semester.
This is the bit that you've all been waiting for, right? So I'd like to welcome Andrea LeBron-Clay, who is from the Board of Trustees, but is also an alumnus of this program, right? To confer the degrees.
It's a really deep honor, partly because I am one of you, partly because when I was in Vermont doing my MFA, I dreamed of a West Coast program, and partly just because you always inspire me, and so it's great to be here. I wish I could do a grant. Anyway, this is the special fairy dust thing that really makes it all kind of come to at least the end of this chapter. The next chapter, believe me, is just beginning, and you will find that you really didn't finish your thesis, you only just began. By the authority vested in me by the Goddard College Board of Trustees and the State of Washington, and with the nomination and approval of the faculty of Goddard College, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto. Congratulations.
So I'm going to ask them to stay at the front of the room because I know that sometimes people want to take photographs. So come down, take your photographs. But before we do that, Joyce, are there any special instructions about lunch?
Lunch begins at 12:30 in the hall.
And do they need coupons or anything? No coupons, just head to the lunchroom at 12:30. So we'll see you there. Thank you very much.